Welcome back to the IU427 garage, everybody. Today I'm working on the King's Cobra. I am under the car working on getting all of the cooling lines wrapped up. I'm probably going to spend a little bit of time getting our replacement emergency brake cables installed while I have the car in the air, and I'll probably jump back on wiring. All right, so we're gonna head underneath the car, and I think you can see we've got our cooling lines all squared away. So I got the clamp all reinstalled, both here and over here. I've got the support for the tube reinstalled. I went ahead and I added Loctite. The owner had put lock washers on here, and while lock washers are fine for some instances where a vibration situation comes into play, I much prefer the Loctite. And since these are stainless machine screws, the Loctite will also act as an anti-seize. So it needed to have something on there anyways, and straight anti-seize with a locking washer probably would have worked loose. So we've got those in there with some blue Loctite. Those will stay in there for a good long time. We won't have to worry about them coming out. And then I got the hose clamps tight on the other end that we had loosened up just to get some play in the tube. So while I was down here, I went ahead and I attached the wires that we had redirected down here to our new horn location. Now, as you know, we always try to talk the owners into doing a more traditional sounding horn. This one from Wolo is called their Bad Boy horn. It is a self-contained air horn, and it really gives the car the sound of an English sports car when you hit the horn, versus the 90s Crown Victoria sound of the horns that Factory 5 gives you. The Factory 5 horns work just fine, but they really don't fit the car. So about the last thing that I've got to do down here is get these wires clamped, and I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clamp them. There are some existing cushion clips up there with some threaded machine screws. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double clamp, so I'll add a second cushion clip to basically harness the wire both up in that location right here, and I'll probably add one down here just to make the wire nice and neat. And then over here, I still have to dress the wires for our cooling fan, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Once I get all that squared away, I'll bring you back, and then what I think I'm gonna go work on is the emergency brake cables. I need to pull out this existing Factory 5 handle because we have a replacement handle we're going to put in there. We're actually going to use a donor handle from a 2004 is the year I think I ordered one for. Mustang. And while it may not have the same visual appeal as the Factory 5 unit because it's not, a polished aluminum handle, it is going to work way better. Meaning you pull it and it's going to set the brakes. You're not going to have to overexert yourself in order to make the brakes actually hold the car. And that's the biggest gripe that I have with the Factory 5 handle. It just does not create enough tension on the cables in order to actually set the parking brake. It'll, kind of keep the car in place if it's on level ground, but if you're on a hill, to me, the Factory 5 handle is pretty much useless because the car will roll in reverse in most cases. So we're going to do that. And then after that, like I said, I think I'm going to jump back on the dash wire, and I really want to get the dash as finished as I can so that we can go ahead and get first start done on this car. All right, I've got a little sidetrack. I had a delivery just a little while ago. And I've had this list on my master list here in the shop for some time, and I've been diagnosing the Blue Ranger pickup for a while. I'm having trouble with it starting. It's very hard to start. So At first I thought it was the fuel pump, and I bought a fuel pump. I just now have not replaced it. But I checked the fuel pressure, and it's got plenty of fuel pressure. So I don't think it's the fuel pump. But if it turns out that it is, I've got one and we'll replace it. What I found in my diagnosis, I've got injectors with a couple of question marks after it right here. If an injector is stuck open, what will happen is when you turn the key, it floods that cylinder, and that cylinder, of course, will not want to fire because it's overfueled. And inadvertently, it underfuels the other cylinders. So if you turn the key multiple times in order to run the fuel pump multiple times, you can build enough pressure in the rest of the fuel injectors that the truck will start. So I kind of went there after I checked the fuel pressure and found out that the fuel pressure is just fine. So the other thing that led me to the fuel injectors is not soon after this started happening, one of my O2 sensors went bad. Or it threw a check engine light, which usually means that something's up. Now, it's reporting lean, which doesn't seem quite right, but it could be that that particular cylinder is not running properly. It's overfueled, and therefore the others are lean, and that one cylinder may not be firing, but I haven't noticed a miss. So I got a set of fuel injectors ordered, and they just came in yesterday, as a matter of fact. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a sidetrack, and I'm going to work on getting those fuel injectors changed out on the truck. Typical Ford. One side is easy. The passenger side is easy because it's all three fuel injectors are accessible. The driver's side, however, are not accessible. They're under the upper intake manifold and are going to be a giant pain in the ass to get to. So I'm going to have to remove the entire upper intake manifold to get to those fuel injectors. Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to pull as much, not pull as much stuff off the upper intake as I can, and possibly just kind of fold it up out of the way. But I don't know that's going to hold true. I've never had this manifold off before, so I don't know. So I'm going to get going on that. I don't know if I'm going to bring you back for that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that's what I'm doing today, and I'll let you know how it turns out. Well, I only took off the stuff that I needed to in order to remove the manifold, and I got the fuel injectors out, and I got the new fuel injectors in. Now, as I'm buttoning it up, I went to clip the electrical connector onto the fuel injectors, and it just didn't seem right. It's like they wouldn't lock on. Now, I'm assuming I broke these when I went to pull them off. They're just old. You know, the truck's a 2007, and so these fuel injectors have never been changed. You can see all the split loom on the outside has just kind of disintegrated away, but the wires are in good condition. And without even touching the locks, I can get the fuel injector connector to come right off. You can see right through that hole, all the locks have busted off. So I'm going to have to order 6 fuel injector connectors, which I'm not particularly happy about because I was hoping to get this taken care of today, this weekend. But you know, these are the things you run into when you do stuff like this, projects like this. And I just thank God that I don't rely on one particular vehicle like to get to work every day, because then this would really be an issue, because I'd be running around all afternoon trying to find electrical connectors or half-assing this back together with, you know, tie wraps or something like that in order to get to work on Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some tape over the intake runners, or I might just stuff rags in there. Clean up everything that I've taken apart, so I might as well go ahead and clean up the intake, the upper intake a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and test the injectors. I have a little tool that I can test them to see whether the solenoid portion of them is working it right or not. I can put compressed air through there to see if they're leaking or whether they're just not opening, and determine whether or not maybe the fuel injectors were or weren't the problem. But I still I still have a fuel pump to put it in the truck if that is the issue, because the regulator is actually on the fuel pump in the tank. So there's no fuel regulator in the engine compartment in this particular model of truck. So, you know, maybe the regulator's gone bad, but the pressure's holding pretty steady. It's a little bit high, but it's holding steady. So I don't know that that's the problem. The issue with pulling the fuel pump is that you either have to pull the tank out from the bottom, which is a royal pain in the neck, or you have to pull the bed off the truck, which is usually easier. But as you can see, I've got a lumber rack and toolboxes full of tools on the truck, and so in order to do that, I've got to pull the toolboxes off first after pulling the tools out, pull the boxes off, pull the rack off, pull the bed liner out, and then pull the bed out. So it if I have to replace the fuel pump, you know, I'll just have to replace it, but it will be an issue. It's probably going to be a multi-day thing. I'll just do, you know, the toolboxes one day, maybe the lumber rack another, and the bed liner, and then pull the bed off, and then hopefully get the fuel pump out, get the bed back on after I've tested it, and then I can slowly put the rack and the toolboxes and all that stuff back on. But yeah, so that's kind of the day I've had. Like I said, I'm gonna clean all that stuff up, and then I'm just gonna leave those tools out there because I've got enough tools that I don't need to put those back in the box, and then bring all them out in order to put it all back together, because I'm hoping I'll have the connectors in a couple of days. And then I'm going to go online, I'm going to order the connectors. I'm just going to get 6 of them, solder them in, be done with it, and then hopefully I won't ever have to address fuel injectors in this truck again. Hopefully, if our move is successful, I'll be able to V8 swap the Ranger in the future. So, all right, I'll catch up with you guys later. I wanted to test for leaks before I kind of gave up for today. So what I did was I went into the underhood fuse box or power distribution box, and I hot wired the relay. Basically, I just bypassed the relay to turn the fuel pump on. Fuel pump ran for, I don't know, 30-40 seconds. Came out to this side of the truck, checked all the connections and where the O-rings seal into the fuel rail, and no leaks. Now, there is some air in there. We know that because, you know, we opened up the line, and I can't purge that out until I actually start the thing. But hopefully there's no leaks. So I'm going to go on that assumption. I'm going to order up those connectors right now, and then I'll probably just clean up the intake manifold during the week. I'm going to check, see if any other parts need to be replaced, you know, any gaskets or anything. The gaskets between the lower and the upper intake manifold look good, so I'm probably just going to reuse those. But anything else that I see that I think needs to be replaced, I'm just going to go ahead and replace. Like the split loom that's over the top of those wires for the fuel injectors, I'm going to go ahead and replace all that stuff, make everything look nice. Then once I get it all back together, I'm sure it's running the way it's supposed to. I'll probably go ahead and you know, clean and power wash the engine, because it's been a while. It's probably been 2-3 years since the truck was detailed, but since the paint's been failing, it really hasn't been a priority to me. So at some point I think I might have a wrap done, because there's just no saving this paint. With the lumber rack on it, I'll just put a wrap on the areas that the paint is failing, and hopefully it'll make it look passable. Anyways, I'll catch up with you guys later. I'm gonna go back into the shop now and start working on the King's Cobra again. All right, welcome to tomorrow, everybody. I spent some time yesterday afternoon working on the King's Cobra, and I wanted to change out the Factory 5 emergency brake handle to the Mustang one that we picked up off of eBay, I think. These Mustang handles, you can find them all over on eBay. They usually run anywhere between $30 and $100. I think we got this one for right around 30 bucks shipped. MPS is a salvage company that used to sell donor pallet kits for Factory 5 Racing Roadster kits. They're selling stuff on eBay, and that's who we got this from. It's a real clean example of one of the brake handles. It's got a little surface rust on it, but it's not anything that's going to, impede the performance of the handle. And the rest of it is in really good condition. So I'm going to turn around. I'll show you what it looks like installed. The reason that we install this is because the Factory 5 handle just doesn't offer you as much leverage. It's a straight pull. So the only leverage you're gaining is the length of the handle. Where with the Mustang one, the cable that comes out of it is wrapped around a drum that is about 3 inches in diameter. And it's amazing the amount of leverage you can get from that. Now, because Factory 5 has moved to manufacturing their own handle, in many instances, the donor part compatibility ain't what it used to be. So you're going to have to do some modifications. You're going to have to make the hole in the Factory 5 mount, at least the forward one, larger so that it'll pull the handle away from the tunnel. What I found though, and I'll show you in a minute, we'll walk over to the the driver's side, we're at the passenger side now, is that this is something that I think a lot of guys are overlooking when they're building these cars, and that is they're not putting the pop rivets on the side of the tunnel here. And if you don't do that, then you put your handle in, you find out your handle has interference with the sheet metal, the aluminum. And so this owner found that he was having that problem, and rather than addressing the issue by using the pop rivets, he cut this area open so that the handle would clear. If you pop rivet it to the steel behind it, it will suck the panel towards the tunnel, and you'll gain the clearance that you need for the handle to operate properly. So as it sits right now, our handle will go all the way to its stop and not rub anything. And I've only installed 1, 2, 3 rivets. Now what I did first, just so I could mock this up and get it to fit, I first put in some of the number 8 sheet metal screws that Factory 5 mounts a lot of the sheet metal to temporarily when they ship the kit. And I zipped in 3 of them in those spots, and just to get the sheet metal to pull over so I could rough fit the handle in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the rest of the pop rivets up here, and then there are going to be about 3 of them back in here, and that's going to pull the panel in. It's going to make it easier for your seatbelt to go in too, because I like to mount the seatbelt on the outside, not the inside. The other thing we'll get to at the point where we actually, start putting heat and sound mat and carpet and stuff like that, you want to pre-drill your hole through the sheet metal right here, because you're not going to get a bolt on this. So pre-drill this with a 1/4 inch hole. And then from the other side, you're going to want to use a 7/8 hole saw to make sure that you have room enough to get a socket in there to tighten the nut that goes on the bolt holding this back seat belt mount. So again, make sure that you don't overlook these pop rivets. I mean, the owner even went to the extent of putting silicone sealant on here, but he didn't pre-drill the panel. You can see there's no pre-drilled holes in it, and he didn't put any pop rivets in. I don't know if he thought he was going to come back to it when he did the top, because as you can see, there's no pop rivets in the top either. But I normally get a kit before this stage. I'm usually getting the kit after someone makes it a roller, but it hasn't yet started on the sheet metal, and so I've usually installed these pieces and they get put in the way they're supposed to be. So we'll walk over to the driver's side, and you can see just how much play there is in this panel. So I mean, there is so much give in this panel before it's going to be pulled tight to that chassis. And you really need to do this. I can't stress it enough. You know, I know there's going to be people that tell me, oh, it's not that big a deal. You know, it's an open car. There's no room in it anyways. You're only losing this little bit. Yeah, but for the emergency brake, it makes a huge deal. You guys can see that. And so by the time you start building up your layers, your heat and sound mat and your carpeting, you're losing that much plus the heat and sound mat and the carpeting. So the more room that you can allow in the cockpit, the more room you're gonna have to move around in the car. Bottom line, even if it's just this little bit, it all counts. So I'm not gonna be able to work anymore on the car today. We have some Factory 5 friends coming over this afternoon, and we're gonna spend some time with them. I'll see you guys tomorrow night after work. Next evening, everyone, and I'm working under the car. Well, I'm working on top of the car too, but I'm just finishing up with the emergency brake cables. So we ditched the Factory 5 cables, and we've replaced them with the appropriate year Mustang cables, which are going to be a 94, 95. It probably goes over into the 96 and probably into all the way to the 98 model year. I think they use the same cables. Now there are differences between the right and the left cable. I don't know which one is longer in the Mustang, but on the Factory 5 Mark IV, you want the longer one to go to the driver's side. It's not that much longer. It's only like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches longer, but it does matter because it just helps in routing the cables. So what I've done is I've routed them in about the same direction, but right up here where the old cables used to go in, I'm gonna see if I can grab a light. All right, so where the Factory 5 cables went, we're right through these two holes right here in this rear mount, which makes you have to run the cables underneath the 4-inch round tube. We're going to the upper or forward mounts, and so we don't have to run them underneath the 4-inch round tube. They're up and away. So what I normally would have done if the transmission and drive shaft weren't already in here is I would drill out the holes in this bracket a little larger so that, see if you can see the holes in there, so that I could just run the cables directly through them. And that would just act as support. But I can't get a drill really up in there to run those through, so I'm just gonna end up strapping my cables to the side of that bracket. And then the driver's side bracket comes over the top of the pumpkin, and then it routes right along the back, behind the rear coilover, and then into like the area where the caliper is. And once the wheel's off, I can show you guys how the cable routes on that side. I'm not going to be doing that today. On the other side, it's kind of the same thing. It goes up over the third link bar and the banana bracket, and then drops down and into the back of the wheel and towards the caliper, since we've mounted the calipers on the front. So they're in place as far as I can finish them for now, because I still have to pull the calipers off to paint them and get them all prettied up so that they blend in with the front calipers. So I'm probably gonna see if I can order some paint online tonight. If not, I can pick it up at the local auto parts store. It's just, it's so expensive. You know, you buy it at the local auto parts store, and of course they have to mark it up because they've paid for shipping and everything else. So, not a gripe, it's just a fact of life here. But I'm gonna see if I can get some of that silver high temp caliper paint to paint those calipers, clean them up. I need a couple of cans of brake clean anyway, so I may just end up going to the auto parts store. But I think that's where I'm gonna end the video, and we'll pick up next time, probably on the dash again, because I want to get that dash squared away. I got some work done, but it's nothing you guys can really see. It still looks the same. So I'll catch you guys back up in the next video on the dash. And I ordered some coolant. That should be here in a couple of days. We're gonna check, you know, to make sure the car has oil in it. And then hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to do a first start on this thing. As always, if you're enjoying the content here, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.